So I know on the right we have this whole thing against politicizing tragedies, and obviously, prayers out to all those involved, all of those affected. But it is just simply the truth. It is the fact of the matter that what happened in Waukesha on Sunday was preventable. It was preventable, and it was directly liberal policies, and we're going to find out, likely indirectly, also the result of liberal media. We'll talk about that maybe at a later point, that caused this to happen. Okay? And so I actually think in many ways, it's our responsibility. It's our duty, basically, to actually all of those who were killed, who were hurt, who were affected, to actually tell the truth about the situation and to actually, go over what caused it and what needs to be done to prevent something like this from happening again. And quite frankly, I think the reason why a lot of liberal narratives in America are so effective is precisely because they exploit tragedies to push lies, to push narratives that are untrue, to push narratives that are flawed. And so obviously, I think that it's actually our duty as the people who are moral, as the people who are correct in this country, to essentially do the same, except to push truth, right? It's our responsibility to, when stuff like this happens, tell the truth and tell the whole truth about the entire situation. And it is simply the truth that what happened in Waukesha on Sunday, which I'm sure you've heard about by now, was more than just, as the media is reporting, an accident, a car plowing through a crowd, at a Christmas parade or whatever it is. The reality is, the suspect who did this, okay, let's just be totally honest, was a career criminal, okay? Reporting now from USA Today, this guy, total career criminal. This guy's been arrested 16 times, okay? 16 times since 1999. And just last Friday was arrested. Here, reading from USA Today, in the most recent case, a woman told police Brooks purposely ran her over with his vehicle while she was walking through a gas station parking lot after he had followed her there after a fight, according to the criminal complaint. The woman was hospitalized, records show, okay? Brooks was released from jail on Friday. So just, again, this thing happens on Sunday. Brooks is, the guy who did this, is released from jail just last Friday after posting bond in the recent incident. According to court records, he was also charged in July 2020 with 2 felony counts of second-degree recklessly endangering the safety of others using a dangerous weapon. Both cases are ongoing. Now, perhaps what is most outrageous about this entire situation is the fact, okay, he ran over a woman, just got out of jail, but guess why he was allowed to get out of jail? And here's where the liberal policy factors in, because you have to ask the question: arrested 16 times since 1999, already has 2 felony counts, and then just like a few weeks ago is running over a woman with his car. Okay, why was this guy allowed out onto the streets? Why was this criminal, and very likely, we're going to find out, very likely, probably a terrorist, allowed out onto the streets to begin with? And the answer is, well, continuing to read from this article, the Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office said it has launched an internal review of its quote-unquote inappropriately low bail recommendation in the recent domestic violence-related case. Brooks posted a $1,000 bond, according to the Milwaukee Sheriff's Office. So this career criminal tries to run over a woman with his car, does run over a woman with his car, I should say. $1,000 bail. That's it. That's all he got out of doing this. $1,000 in bail. Yeah, no wonder he was allowed to pay it, able to pay it, because I'm presuming this is not a guy who exactly has a ton of money, but was able to pay this bail because it was set at freaking $1,000. And that's exactly what you get. This is the result of this is a liberal district attorney. It is Milwaukee, shouldn't be much of a surprise. This is exactly the result of so-called quote unquote bail reform. Yeah. Have you heard of that? Have you heard of that from a lot of liberal politicians? Have you heard of that actually being considered by a lot of Republican politicians as well? That's the essential question we ought to be asking. At least one of the essential questions we ought to be asking out of this entire case. Why was this career criminal, this psychopath, this degenerate, allowed to just roam the streets? And again, it is exactly because of so-called quote-unquote bail reform. It is because of so-called quote-unquote criminal justice reform. And we talked about this last week. We talked about, the fact that this is a line. This whole line of criminal justice reform is exactly something that sadly, you see a lot of Republican politicians try to get behind the prove that they're not racist or whatever. No, this is the reality of criminal justice reform. The reality of criminal justice reform is this person and people like this are allowed to walk out and roam all over American streets because of the fact that you refuse to be tough on criminals. You refuse to lock them up. You give them outrageously low bails, which is, exactly what a lot of liberal activists in America want. This is exactly what you get. This is a direct result of it, okay? Because had the bail not been set so tremendously low, had the bail been set at a fairly high price, I mean, I believe the bail in the Kyle Rittenhouse case was somewhere around $2 million. This guy, again, arrested 16 times in his life, $1,000 bail. They let the guy out of jail, and here's exactly what happens. Listen. The problem in America, contrary to what liberal activists will constantly push and a lot of Republican politicians fall for because they don't want to be called racist by the media, even though they get called racist by the media anyway, the problem in America is not that we are too tough on crime. Sorry, I should say. The problem is precisely that we are too soft on crime. Okay, and so I'm very tired of hearing conservatives push this whole 94 crime bill bad, whatnot. No, okay, the reality of the situation is that tough on crime policies are actually a good thing, and clearly what this tragedy shows is that we ought to have more of them. Okay, we ought to have more of them, not less of them. I remember, growing up back in California, we used to have this policy called the three strikes law, okay? And this is something that obviously left-wingers tried to get rid of because it was racist, but I've also heard conservatives basically get out there and say, well, see, Kamala Harris did that. See, the racist Democrats did that. Okay, yeah, okay. And basically what the three strikes law said was that if you commit 3 felonies, right, so you have 3 strikes, 3 felonies, you go to jail for life. You go to prison for life. And I'm really, looking back at this is something that was so demonized growing up, and this is something even that I heard a lot of conservatives say was a bad thing growing up. Why exactly was that such a bad thing? Because what we're learning is that career criminals are career criminals. You keep getting arrested, you keep committing a bunch of crimes, in this case, a bunch of felonies. The people, look, I'm a Christian. I fully believe, obviously, that people can, repent, people can change. But, realistically, in most cases, it is just a reality of life. It is a reality of human nature that, most people who continue to commit crimes throughout their lives, throughout their careers, quote unquote, will continue to do so. And that's not a bad policy. I mean, quite frankly, it's not. And I would say also, quite frankly, it was a deterrence. I think it was a fairly effective deterrence from a lot of people who would have been repeat felons, had to think twice because they were going to, but no, that's racist. Being tough on crime, that's bad. And what you hear from the Republicans, being tough on crime is a racist Democratic policy. No, that's just not the case. And so that's number one, I would say the key question that we ought to be asking about the entire Waukesha thing is, why was this guy allowed to roam the streets? He was allowed to roam the streets precisely because of people like the Milwaukee County District Attorney who, is a proponent of so-called criminal justice reform. Don't fall for the criminal justice reform psyop. Stop pushing it if you're a conservative. Exactly what it equates to are criminals being allowed out onto the streets. We don't need soft on crime criminal justice reform. In fact, if anything, we need criminal justice reform in the sense that we need to make the justice system tougher and harsher. Okay, I'm not apologizing for saying that. I mean, quite frankly, but I would say the other interesting thing about this case, the other thing that, it needs to be looked at is the fact that you go through this guy's social media, okay, the guy who did this, and what you see are very strong ties to black nationalism, okay? This guy was an open black nationalist. It's all over. Now, obviously, you're not seeing this at all, reported by the media. They're trying to cover this up. They're trying to cover up for the guy, right? And you compare that to how it was reported with Kyle Rittenhouse, and it's pretty clear, right? So to them, right, white privilege, quote unquote, in America is when, if you're a white guy who acts in self-defense, you will be ruthlessly slandered as a white supremacist domestic terrorist. But if you're a black person who intentionally plows your car through a crowded parade of people, and you do so with pretty open and verifiable ties to black nationalism, the media will do everything to cover for you. Yeah, that's what white privilege looks in America. I mean, it's pretty obvious. We have the opposite of that in the system. We have an anti-white system. But, I'm not going to say that was explicitly the motive because we don't know, but there is a pretty strong, let's just be honest, there's a pretty strong possibility that that was the motive, and there's a pretty high likelihood that, you look at, this just comes right after the Kyle Rittenhouse situation. You look at this guy, blatant black nationalist. He posted things, basically ridiculing the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict and whatnot. Waukesha is a very majority white town, from my understanding. He just plows his car. I mean, I'm not saying explicitly, I'm not going to say explicitly that we confirm that that's the motive, but I think there's a very strong possibility that that's what it was. And so, that's exactly what you would get. And, honestly, if it is the case that that's exactly why it happened, well, why may have that had happened? Well, you look at the way the media has been, obviously for years they've been pushing blatantly anti-white, narratives throughout their things. But especially you look at the Kyle Rittenhouse case, the way they've just blatantly defamed the guy, the way they blatantly lied, brought total false information, reported total false information to the case, and went absolutely insane and spread more lies when Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted. And you look at this guy, already a black nationalist, really, stirred up, is something to consider. And I think it's also something to consider that increasingly what you're going to see with the stoking of these flames is that black nationalism truly is a public safety threat, and it's a national security threat to this country, But something to think about. Again, something to think about, okay? Again, I'm not going to say that's explicitly the motive. I'm not going to say we know that at this point, but we do know that he was a black nationalist. We do have what he posted on social media, and, I would say there's probably about a 70% chance, probably maybe even more, that that's why it happened. So, something to consider. All right, guys, with that being said, I'll see you guys later. It's very sad. I wanted to talk about this a little bit. And, we made a video last week about this criminal justice reform thing. And, some people were a little bit unhappy with it. Well, this is what you get with criminal justice reform. And of course, there's a lot more to the case too, whether it's the discussions of black nationalism or whatever it is. So anyways, I'll see you guys later. Have a great Thanksgiving, you guys. Be safe. Say your prayers. God bless you. Alpha moves only, and peace. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, be sure to subscribe, and be sure to consider becoming a member. Very epic perks, very great. Also, I'm now on Odyssey, by the way, okay? Link in the description, so if you want to watch my videos, without any type of censorship or any type of that stuff, you actually give me more revenue, by the way, if you want to support the channel by watching the content on Odyssey. And we may actually be doing some exclusive videos on there soon, so, keep that in mind. But anyways, be sure to check out my Odyssey. Consider becoming a member. Very epic perks. And I'll see you guys later. Have a happy Thanksgiving. God bless. John 3:16. Good night. Never mind. That's Jesus Christ fans thing. And I'm not Jesus Christ fan. So on Twitter. So that's his thing. I'm not going to steal his thing. Of course I wouldn't. I would never do such a thing. So I would just say, see you guys later. God bless. Good night. Okay. But yeah, peace.